Before we dive into this thrilling story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest uploads. Your support keeps us going. Now, let's get into it. The scent of freshly baked lasagna filled the dining room, rich with the aroma of melted cheese and slow-cooked marinara. It should have been comforting, a nostalgic reminder of home. Instead, it churned my stomach. I sat at the long, polished cherrywood table, my parents across from me, my younger twin siblings, Liam and Lyanna, smirking on either side. Their identical expressions, full of self-satisfaction, made the air thick with something unspoken yet menacing. Then, Liam leaned forward, his voice dripping with condescension. "Just so we're clear, we wanted you to know now, so there's no confusion later. Everything goes to us." A heavy silence fell over the room. For a second, I thought I'd misheard. I blinked at him, then at my mother, then at my father, waiting for someone, anyone, to correct him. To tell me this was some kind of tasteless joke. But no one did. Mom's soft smile, the one she always used to smooth things over, was gone. Instead, her lips were pressed into a thin, immovable line. Dad wouldn't even meet my eyes, his gaze fixed on the silverware in front of him. "The house," Mom clarified, her voice cool and firm. "The lake cottage. The savings account. Everything your father and I have, it's all going to Liam and Lyanna." My heart thumped, an unnatural rhythm pounding against my ribs. A slow, icy realization crept through me. I was being erased. Lyanna's manicured nails tapped against the stem of her wine glass as she smiled sweetly. "You seem shocked, Sarah. You're smart, you must have seen this coming." I swallowed hard, trying to steady my voice. "You're leaving me nothing? Sarah?" Dad finally spoke, his voice quiet, measured. "You have to understand our reasoning." Oh, I couldn't wait to hear this. "You've done extremely well for yourself," he continued, as if that should be an explanation. "Your mother and I are proud of what you've built. Your career, your independence, you don't need anything from us." I let out a short, breathless laugh. "But they do?" I motioned toward the twins, who were watching me like cats playing with a wounded bird. Mom folded her arms. "They're still finding their way. They're 26. I said, incredulous. "Liam has changed majors 4 times and still doesn't have a degree. Lyanna." I turned to my sister, who only raised an eyebrow. "Blew through 3 different businesses in 2 years because she couldn't commit to a single one. And yet, somehow, they need your support more than I do?" "You have a high-paying job," Mom said simply. "They don't? So that's what this is." My voice was shaking now. "Because I made something of myself, I don't deserve anything?" Mom sighed, shaking her head, her expression one of pure exasperation. "This is exactly why we didn't want to tell you. You always make it about money, Sarah. It's never about family with you." A sharp, stinging pressure built behind my eyes, but I refused to let it show. It was always about family. That's why I'd spent years covering their mortgage, their bills, Liam's tuition changes, Lyanna's whims and luxury hobbies. It wasn't about money to me. It was about making sure my family was okay. And apparently, none of that mattered. Liam scoffed, leaning back in his chair. "No one forced you to help. You just liked playing the hero." Lyanna chuckled, twirling a strand of glossy dark hair around her finger. "Maybe you thought if you threw enough money at us, Mom and Dad would finally love you as much as they love us." The room tilted slightly. Not from the wine. From the weight of their words. My parents didn't even flinch at the cruelty laced in Lyanna's voice. They didn't correct her, didn't tell her she'd gone too far. They sat there, silent. And in that moment, their silence was louder than anything they could have said. It was the only answer I needed. The last thread of hope inside me snapped. I set my wine glass down, pushing back my chair. The legs scraped against the hardwood floor, sharp and final. "You're right, Liam," I said quietly. "No one forced me." I reached for my coat, gripping the thick wool as if it could hold me together. "But starting today, no one can guilt me into being this family's ATM either." The twins' smirks faltered. Mom sat up straighter, eyes narrowing. "Sarah, don't be dramatic." I ignored her. For the first time in years, I ignored her. As I turned toward the door, Liam's voice followed behind me. "You're really leaving over this?" I paused only long enough to glance over my shoulder. "You left me first." Then I walked out. Out of that house. Out of their lives. And for the first time in my life, I realized I wasn't running away. I was finally walking towards something better. Toward freedom. The night air hit me like a slap, crisp and unforgiving. Portland's skyline stretched beyond the neighborhood, cold and indifferent to the unraveling of my life. My hands trembled as I gripped the steering wheel, my heartbeat hammering in my ears. I drove on autopilot, barely registering the city streets passing in a blur of neon signs and headlights. My apartment was downtown, a sleek, modern space I had worked tirelessly to afford, one that should have felt like home. But as I stepped inside, it felt empty. Not just because of the silence, or the dim glow of my desk lamp casting long shadows across the walls, but because for the first time, I was truly alone. I stood there, keys dangling from my fingers, trying to process what had just happened. How quickly my family had dismissed me. How little I had meant to them beyond my bank account. For years, I had justified their actions, telling myself they were just bad with money, that they didn't understand the burden they placed on me. But tonight had proven otherwise. It wasn't ignorance. It was entitlement. They didn't just expect my help. They believed they were owed it. The bitter realization made my stomach twist. I set my coat down, exhaling shakily. My fingers hovered over my phone, the screen lighting up with unread messages. My family group chat was already buzzing. Mom, Sarah, let's talk about this when you've calmed down. Don't be rash. Dad, we didn't mean to hurt you. This was just the best decision for everyone. Liam, LOL, way to throw a tantrum. Drama queen. Lyanna, wow. You're really making yourself the victim here. I stared at the messages, my chest tightening. Then, one by one, I deleted them. And for the first time in my life, I removed myself from the family group chat. A sharp, painful exhale left my lungs. Done. But that was only the first step. I settled onto my couch, pulling my laptop onto my lap. The glow of the screen illuminated my tired face as I opened my banking app. There it was. The silent list of transactions that told the story of my sacrifices. $1,800, parents' mortgage payment. $600, utilities and bills. $250, miscellaneous family expenses. $30,000, home renovation loan I took out in my name for them. My stomach twisted. How had I let it get this bad? Every month, without fail, I had kept their lives afloat. Covered for their mistakes. Poured money into a home that I had just been told I had no claim to. No more. I clicked on the mortgage payment first, my cursor hovering over the cancel recurring payment button. My breath came out uneven. A small, traitorous part of me hesitated. What if they struggle? What if they get angry? But then I remembered. Liam's smug smirk. Lyanna's cruel laughter. Mom's dismissive tone. Dad's silence. My jaw clenched. Click. The mortgage payment vanished. Another click. The utilities were gone too. Each cancellation was a small, electric rush of defiance. By the time I was done, my bank account looked different, lighter, freer. And so did I. I poured myself a glass of Cabernet, the good bottle, the one I had been saving for a special occasion. Somehow, tonight felt appropriate. I sipped slowly, staring out the window, the city glowing beneath me. A lifetime of expectations had been shattered tonight. But beneath the pain, beneath the quiet ache of betrayal, there was something else. Relief. For the first time in years, I wasn't holding everything together for everyone else. For the first time in years, I had made a decision solely for myself. And I wasn't going back. The first few days were eerily quiet. No calls. No messages. No sudden knocks on my door. It was almost too easy. I told myself they were processing it, that maybe, just maybe, they understood my decision and had finally accepted it. But I should have known better. On the fourth morning, my phone rang. Mom. I stared at the screen, my fingers twitching with the instinct to ignore it. But something in me, maybe the last lingering thread of guilt, made me press accept. Sarah. Her voice was tight, forced into an unnatural calm. We need to talk. I took a slow breath. About? You know about what? I leaned back against the counter, swirling the coffee in my mug. If this is about the money. Of course it's about the money, she snapped, patience cracking. The bank called this morning. They said the mortgage payment didn't go through. We had no idea what happened until your father checked the accounts. You stopped paying it. I let the silence stretch. Sarah, do you have any idea what you've done? Mom's voice was rising now, slipping from anger into something sharper. I did what I should have done a long time ago. You're leaving us in debt. I almost laughed. Debt? The very same debt I had spent years keeping at bay for them? Now suddenly it was an issue, now that it was their problem to solve? I took another sip of coffee, letting the bitterness settle on my tongue. I think you'll manage. Don't be cruel. Her voice dropped into something pleading, something desperate. Fake. We're your parents, Sarah. Family takes care of each other. That's how it's always been. I let out a breath, shaking my head. No, Mom. That's how it's always been for me. Silence. Then softer. You're turning your back on us? I swallowed the sudden lump in my throat. It was always like this with her. Every demand wrapped in guilt, every favor twisted into obligation. But I wasn't that person anymore. I squared my shoulders, forcing steel into my voice. I'm not turning my back on you. I'm just walking away from being used. A sharp inhale. Then, the final card. If you walk away now, she whispered, you will never be welcome back in this family. The words hit harder than I expected. A part of me, a small, wounded part, flinched at them. The little girl in me, the one who had spent years trying to earn their love, still wanted to beg them to reconsider. But that girl had died the night they cut me out of their will. I swallowed down the hurt and let the silence speak for itself. Then, just as she was about to say something else, I ended the call. And I blocked her number. It escalated after that. Liam and Lyanna jumped in next, their messages alternating between mockery and outright hostility. Liam, LMAO, you're actually serious? You really think you can cut us off and live happily ever after? Lyanna, you're such a selfish bitch. You know Mom and Dad can't afford this without you, right? You're making them suffer over some stupid grudge. I blocked them, too. Then came the distant relatives, the aunts and uncles I hadn't spoken to in years, suddenly deeply invested in my morality. Aunt Caroline, Sarah, this is wrong. Family doesn't abandon family. Uncle Ray, you're better than this. Call your mother and apologize. I didn't even bother responding. They had no idea what I had sacrificed. No idea how much I had given up, years of financial security, personal dreams, my own peace of mind, all for a family that had never appreciated it. No. I wasn't going back. But the worst came 2 weeks later. That was when Liam decided to take things a step further. It was a Friday night when I came home from work, exhausted from back-to-back meetings. I had barely stepped out of my car when I noticed something was wrong. The front door of my apartment looked off. I approached slowly, my breath quickening. The closer I got, the clearer it became. A thick layer of expanding foam sealant had been sprayed into every crack of my doorframe. It had hardened into a grotesque, solid mass, completely sealing me out of my own home. My stomach dropped. I reached out, touching the foam. Rock solid. Deliberate. I knew exactly who had done this. My hands clenched into fists, rage flaring through me. I turned sharply, storming back to my car, unlocking my phone with shaking fingers. I pulled up my security camera app, my heart pounding. There. Liam. Baseball cap pulled low. Hoodie up. Smirking as he emptied can after can of industrial-strength sealant onto my door, ensuring I wouldn't be able to enter without serious effort. A cruel, childish act of revenge. I gritted my teeth. My mind screamed at me to call him, to demand an explanation, to tell him just how far he had crossed the line. But I didn't. Instead, I saved the footage. And then I called the police. The police arrived within 20 minutes. A young officer, Officer Delgado, examined the mess with a low whistle. Well, someone really didn't want you getting inside. I crossed my arms, trying to steady my breath. I have security footage of the person who did it. That got his attention. Yeah? I pulled up the video on my phone, pressing play. The glow from the screen illuminated his face as he watched. Liam, clear as day, grinning like a damn child as he sealed me out of my own home. Delgado exhaled sharply. Yeah, that's vandalism. Possibly criminal mischief, depending on the cost of repairs. He looked at me, assessing. Do you want to press charges? The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Pressing charges meant escalation. It meant crossing a line. There would be no going back from this. But as I stood there, staring at the frozen image of Liam's smug, entitled face, something inside me snapped into place. He thought I was weak. He thought I'd just take it. He was wrong. Yes, I said, voice steady. I want to press charges. Delgado nodded. All right. We'll get the paperwork started. In the meantime, you'll need a locksmith to get inside. You have a place to stay tonight? I exhaled slowly. Yeah. I'll figure something out. But I wasn't done yet. 2 days later, Liam called. I almost didn't pick up. But some twisted part of me wanted to hear the panic in his voice. Are you *****ing serious, Sarah? He exploded the second I answered. You filed a police report? I leaned back in my chair, the leather cool against my skin. I did. A sharp inhale. Jesus Christ, you're such a **********. Do you have any idea what you've done? Yeah. I held you accountable for your actions. Must be a new experience for you. Q. He snapped. You could have just, God, I don't know, told me to pay for the repairs. But no, you had to get the cops involved? I tilted my head, feigning thoughtfulness. Funny. You didn't seem too worried about how this would affect me when you were out there laughing like a psychopath while sealing my door shut. A heavy pause. Then, quieter. Mom and Dad are furious. I smirked. Good. His breathing was sharp, uneven. You know what? Fine. What do you want? You want me to pay for the ing repairs? Is that what this is? My fingers drummed against the desk. $33,000. Silence. Then, a choked, incredulous laugh. What? That's the cost of repairs, plus the money I spent covering for you all these years. Consider it your final bill. That's extortion. I shrugged. It's consequences. Another pause. Then, his voice turned sharp, desperate. You're actually serious. Dead serious. A string of curses flew from his mouth before he finally spat. You. And hung up. I smiled. The money arrived the next morning. Exactly $33,000 transferred from my father's account. No note. No apology. Just a bitter, silent transaction, proof that they'd rather pay me off than admit they had lost control. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. No more payments. No more guilt. No more obligations. They had made their choice. And so had I. The silence that followed was deafening. After the money hit my account, I expected more calls, more rage, more attempts to manipulate me back into submission. But instead? Nothing. No texts. No voicemails. No desperate pleas. Just silence. And for a moment, I almost believed it was over. Until the rumors started. It was Aunt Daisy who warned me first. She called late one evening, her voice gentle but urgent. Sarah, I thought you should know, your mom's been talking. I rubbed my temples, already exhausted. Of course she has. What's she saying? Daisy hesitated. That you abandoned them. That you're trying to make them homeless. That after everything they did for you, you turned your back on them over something as silly as a will. I scoffed, bitter laughter bubbling up. Unbelievable. I know the truth, Daisy assured me. But others, they don't. She's making you out to be the villain, Sarah. The words twisted in my gut. For years I had been the one holding everything together. I had sacrificed. Paid. Supported. And now, because I had finally chosen myself, I was the monster? I exhaled, gripping my phone tighter. She can spin whatever story she wants. I muttered. I'm done explaining myself. A pause. Then Daisy said, You don't have to explain yourself. But you do have a right to tell your side. Something about those words lodged deep inside me. My side. I had spent years letting them define me. Letting them decide what I owed them. What I was worth. And now? They were doing it again. Only this time, I wasn't going to let them. The post went up the next morning. It was blunt. Raw. Unfiltered. I laid out everything. The mortgage payments, the tuition, the bills, the years of financial burden I had shouldered without complaint. I told the truth. And the truth was ugly. Within minutes the comments flooded in. Wait, you were paying for everything? And they still cut you out? Holy s******, your family sounds toxic. You did the right thing. Never let them guilt you. So they just used you like an ATM and expected you to stay quiet? That. But there were other comments too. From people who had bought into my mother's sob story. Family sticks together. You should be ashamed. You're just bitter because you didn't get the inheritance. Wow, imagine turning your back on your own blood over money. I ignored them. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't need their approval. Mom's call came 2 hours later. I let it go to voicemail. When I finally listened, her voice was trembling with rage. How dare you humiliate us like this? You have no right to air our private business to the world. I smiled bitterly. Funny. They had no problem making me the villain in their version of the story. But the second I spoke up, it was an unforgivable crime. I hit delete and moved on. Liam was next. His text was short, dripping with venom. Thanks a lot. Everyone hates us now. Hope you're proud. I stared at the message for a long moment, then slowly typed my response. I'm done apologizing for your choices. Maybe now you'll finally learn responsibility. I hit send. And I never heard from him again. Weeks passed. For the first time in years, my life wasn't controlled by my family's demands. No sudden texts begging for money. No late-night calls guilt-tripping me into covering their mistakes. No constant pressure to be the responsible one, the fixer, the provider. It was liberating. But it was also strange. For so long, my identity had been wrapped up in them. Their problems. Their needs. Their chaos. Without it? There was an emptiness I hadn't expected. Who was I, if not the one holding everything together? I threw myself into work. Benet Construction had just landed a major project in Sacramento, a sleek, high-rise medical complex that would keep me busy for months. I volunteered for extra travel, took on the most complex assignments, anything to fill the quiet. But no matter how much I worked, the silence still followed me home. Until one night, when Aunt Daisy showed up at my door. She held 2 steaming cups of coffee, her knitted sweater slightly askew from the evening breeze. Wordlessly, I let her in. She set the cups down, then turned to me, her expression unreadable. "Are you okay?" I exhaled, rubbing my temples. "I don't know." Daisy sat down on the couch, patting the seat next to her. "Talk to me." I hesitated, then sank beside her. "I should feel happy. Relieved. I got exactly what I wanted." I walked away. "I'm free." She nodded, listening. "But it still hurts." My voice was quieter now, almost ashamed. "They never really loved me, did they?" Daisy's face softened. "Oh, sweetheart." She reached over, squeezing my hand. "I think in their own way they did. But they loved what you did for them more." I swallowed hard, blinking against the sudden sting in my eyes. My voice caught. "I wasted so much time trying to earn something that was never there." Daisy nodded. "I know. And I hate that they made you feel that way." She squeezed my hand again, firmer this time. "But you know what, Sarah? You didn't waste that time. Because now, you'll never settle for less than what you deserve again." Her words hit deep. For years, I had given and given and given, pouring everything into people who only took. But I wasn't that person anymore. I wasn't their lifeline. I wasn't their ATM. I wasn't their safety net. I was mine. A month later, I booked a trip to Italy. For years, I had put off travel. Always an excuse, money needed elsewhere, obligations stacking up. But now, for the first time, my paycheck belonged to me. Standing on a balcony in Florence, watching the sunset bleed gold over the city, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Joy. Not the fleeting kind. Not the kind shadowed by obligation or guilt. But real, honest, unburdened happiness. And I wasn't going to let anyone take it from me again. 6 months passed. My family's absence, once an aching wound, became nothing more than a faint scar. I had built a new life. One that wasn't dictated by obligation or guilt. I got promoted. Moved into a new apartment, one that was truly mine. I traveled. I met new people. I lived. And then, on Christmas Eve, Aunt Daisy called. Her voice was hesitant. "Sarah, your parents are struggling." I exhaled, already knowing where this was going. "How bad is it?" "They lost the house." I closed my eyes, the weight of her words pressing against my ribs. The same house I had paid for. The same house I had been cut out of. Now it was gone. For a moment, I felt nothing. Then, a flicker of something cruel, something sharp. Was this karma? Justice? But before the thought could settle, Daisy sighed. "They're still blaming you." I almost laughed. Of course they were. Even now, even after everything, they still refused to take responsibility. They had made their choice. And so had I. That night, as the city lights flickered beyond my window, I sat alone in my apartment, sipping a glass of wine. Once upon a time, this kind of solitude would have crushed me. But now, it felt like peace. I had spent years sacrificing myself for people who had never truly valued me. And in the end, their rejection had been my greatest liberation. They had left everything to Liam and Lyanna. But they had given me something far more valuable. My freedom. And I would never, ever give it back. Life often teaches us lessons in ways we least expect. Sometimes, the most painful betrayals, the deepest wounds inflicted by those we trust the most, become the catalysts for our greatest transformations. This story, though deeply personal, carries universal truths about self-worth, boundaries, and the reality of family obligations. It serves as a harsh but necessary reminder that love is not measured by sacrifice, that obligations do not equate to respect, and that true freedom comes when we learn to walk away from those who see us as nothing more than a convenience. One of the most glaring lessons from this experience is that familial love is not always unconditional. Society romanticizes the idea of family, portraying it as an unbreakable bond where love is unconditional and support is unwavering. But reality is far more complicated. There are families that uplift, nurture, and respect each other, but there are also families that function on a system of silent transactions, where love is given only when it is beneficial, where support is conditional on compliance, and where one person's sacrifices become an expectation rather than an appreciation. It is a bitter pill to swallow when you realize that the love you thought was pure was actually transactional, That your worth within your own family was measured by what you could provide rather than who you were as a person. Another crucial lesson is that sacrificing for others does not guarantee loyalty or gratitude. For years, Sarah poured her financial resources, her time, and her emotional energy into ensuring her family had everything they needed. She paid their mortgage, covered her siblings' tuition and whims, and consistently prioritized their well-being over her own. And yet, when the moment came, none of those sacrifices were acknowledged. They were not seen as acts of love but rather as obligations she was expected to fulfill. This highlights a painful but necessary truth. Some people will take as much as you are willing to give, and instead of gratitude, they will develop an entitlement mindset. They will believe that your sacrifices are not acts of generosity but rather responsibilities you owe them. And the moment you stop, you are labeled as selfish, ungrateful, or cruel. This leads to a third lesson. Setting boundaries is not selfish, it is necessary for survival. When Sarah finally decided to cut financial ties, she was met with hostility, manipulation, and outright retaliation. This is the hallmark of toxic relationships. When you refuse to be exploited, those who benefited from your sacrifices will try to paint you as the villain. But this is where strength is tested. Many people struggle with guilt when they establish boundaries, fearing that they are betraying their loved ones. But true love does not require self-destruction. If the only way to maintain a relationship is by sacrificing your own well-being, then that relationship is not love, it is exploitation. Learning to say no is one of the most powerful tools a person can develop. It is not a rejection of others but a declaration of self-respect. Furthermore, this story illustrates that walking away from toxicity is an act of courage, not cowardice. The easy choice would have been for Sarah to continue paying, to continue sacrificing, to continue being the silent provider while her family thrived at her expense. But she chose the harder path, the path of letting go. Walking away from those who should love you but choose to use you is one of the most difficult decisions a person can make. It is painful, isolating, and riddled with guilt. But it is also liberating. It is the moment you reclaim your life as your own. Some people never take that step, spending their entire lives seeking validation from those who will never give it. But once you walk away, you realize that the validation you were chasing was never worth it in the first place. Another powerful realization that emerges from this story is that people will always try to rewrite history to make themselves the victim. When Sarah's family lost her financial support, they did not reflect on their own actions. They did not acknowledge the years she spent taking care of them. Instead, they twisted the narrative, painting her as the selfish one, as the child who abandoned her parents, as the sibling who let greed cloud her judgment. This is what happens when people who have never faced consequences suddenly do. They deflect, they manipulate, they refuse to accept responsibility. It is far easier to blame the person who left than to admit they were the reason they left. But here is the truth: other people's perception of you is not your responsibility. You cannot control the stories they tell, the lies they spin, or the versions of events they fabricate. But you can control how much you let it affect you. In the end, the truth does not need defending. It stands firm on its own. One of the most painful yet empowering lessons in this story is that sometimes, the best revenge is simply moving on. Many people, when betrayed, seek retaliation. They want those who hurt them to suffer, to understand the depth of their pain. But in reality, the best revenge is to show them that they no longer have power over you. The moment Sarah canceled those payments, the moment she stopped responding to the guilt trips, the moment she lived her life on her own terms, she won. She did not need to ruin her family, they ruined themselves. They relied on her so heavily that when she walked away, their world collapsed. That is the irony of dependency. Those who act the most entitled to your help are often the ones least capable of standing on their own. True victory is not making them suffer, it is living a life where their existence no longer affects your happiness. The final and perhaps most profound lesson from this journey is that sometimes, losing everything is the only way to gain yourself. Sarah lost her family, the people she spent years trying to please, the ones she believed would always be there. But in losing them, she gained freedom. She gained the ability to make choices for herself without guilt. She gained the chance to travel, to live, to explore the world beyond the suffocating expectations placed on her. She gained peace. And that is the ultimate trade-off. People often fear letting go because they believe they will be left with nothing. But sometimes, nothing is better than toxic something. Sometimes, being alone is better than being surrounded by people who drain you. So what can we take from this? We can take the knowledge that love should not require suffering. That kindness should not be mistaken for weakness. That the people who guilt you into sacrificing for them are rarely the ones who would do the same for you. We can learn that it is okay to choose yourself. That walking away is not failure but triumph. That true family is not defined by blood but by those who respect, value, and love you without conditions. We can remember that we are not obligated to set ourselves on fire to keep others warm. And most importantly, we can embrace the truth that our worth is not determined by what we provide to others but by who we are when we stand alone. Because in the end, the greatest gift you can ever give yourself is the permission to live for you,